In this lecture, we'll be going over how to create a base character model in a platformer perspective. So to begin this lecture, we'll start by creating a new file, and I'll again make this a 24 by 24 sized canvas. So once I have everything ready to go, the first thing I'll do is actually load the palette that we created for the base character a couple lectures ago. So we created the base character palette.ase. I'm just going to double click on that. And now we have our palette back ready to go to use for this platformer style character. So just like how we created the top-down base character model, I'll be starting with a skin color and creating some kind of head for this character, being 8 pixels tall by 12 pixels wide. Now I'll just erase the corner pixels to round off our head, and finally create a 1 height pixel neck, being 4 pixels across. For creating our shirt, I'll use the base middle orange color and create a 6 by 6 square for the torso. Now the pants are going to be slightly different from last time, and the reason for this is because we want our stance to be a little bit more prominent in a certain direction. And so I'm going to keep the front leg straight and actually bend the back leg towards the left side of our canvas to show that our character is facing the right side. And last but not least, we add in the brown color for our shoes, where the only difference this time being we want to show both feet pointing towards the direction that we are assigning to our character. Now this might be a little bit tricky, but I would like you to pause the video super quickly and try to attempt to add the arms to this design. Just keep in mind that our character is on an angle facing to the right side of the screen, so our back arm might be slightly out of view. Hopefully you could try to figure out some kind of way to create these arms, but what I did is I just created 3 pixels down and across the top right side of the shoulder, again coming back to the skin color and just dotting in a couple pixels to create a small rectangle for a half hidden arm. Now for the other side, our arm should be fully in view, so just leaving a couple pixels for the shoulder. We can then create a staircasing block for our arm and just fill all the way to the shirt. Now, if it's a little bit hard to see, I'm actually going to outline this entire character now so we can really understand the form of this character. Now, just slightly adjusting the proportions, I pulled the front arm slightly in and cutting off the bottom pixels on the back arm to match the same height as the front arm. And just like that, we have our proper character silhouette. Now I'm going to design the same eyes that I created for the front facing view. The only difference here is I'm going to shift the eyes 1 pixel to the right to show that our eyes are looking towards the right side of our canvas. Perfect. So now that we have our eyes, we can start to actually shade our drawing and then finally highlight to finish this piece off. For the head, I'm going to be shading around the back side, as the front side of our image is going to catch a lot more light than the back side. I also like adding in this little divot right between the eyes just to show the difference from the face portion from the forehead. We can also shade the entire neck in dark pixels, as the neck is underneath the chin, not really getting any light. And finally, we can shade the entire back arm, as we want to show that this arm is being pulled back and behind the character's torso. To make sure that the clothing matches our last top-down character, I'll go over to my base orange color and I'll drag down a pixel across the bottom to lengthen out the shirt, and add 1 pixel in the corner at the hip to show that the shirt is forming over top of the pants. Just to show some separation, I'll grab the black color and put 1 pixel diagonal to the right of the hand to show where the stomach and the arm separates. And then finally, I will grab the white color and line from the top of the torso all the way down the front of the chest. Now, once again, I would like you to pause the video, and with the skills that you've learned in this section so far, I would like you to try to completely highlight this image. Again, we're facing the right side, so make sure that you are drawing a light source coming from the top right. Now, hopefully you had a chance to try this out. So what I would do is first start off with the light orange to highlight the shirt. And I'm going to come all the way across the top of the chest, right to where the chest meets the arms to create a square shape. And I'll just fill this over on the other side as well. And then we can drop one more pixel down and across the stomach area, leaving our outer pixel shaded as we want to show some kind of rounded off shape at the bottom. Now for the pants, it's pretty simple. I'm just going to highlight the knees and the top of the hip region. And just like last time for the shoes, we're just highlighting the entire shoe except for the back pixel facing away from our light source. Now the last thing to do is to shade the shoulders of our character, as this part is still being slightly covered from the head of our character, also grabbing the darker gray color to shade the top of the inside shirt as well. If you'd like, you can add a shaded pixel to the bottom to show that the shirt is being tucked underneath the pants. But just like that, we have a properly designed platformer-based character. Now to end off this drawing, I will go in and add some hair just to give some more personality to our character. Just again, make sure that you are clustering your highlights when you're creating your hair and making sure that your light is coming from one consistent place. I also like to add a skin shadow color where the hair meets the forehead, but give this a shot and play around and see what you can create in your style. So really all I did here was swap around some of the colors on the shirt, pants, and shoes. Gave my character a slightly new skin color and eye color, and decided to put my character in a cap. Very simple stuff, but here we have a second perspective that we've just learned with two slightly differently designed characters. I really hope you learned something from this lecture, but I will see you in the next one. So to begin this lecture, we're going to start off by accessing the platformer character base sprite that we created a few lectures ago when we were doing platformer sprites. So it should look something like this, and you may have two different characters here if you did partake in the challenge. So we're actually just going to get rid of this second character by just collecting the delete key. And now we only have one character. So really the first thing that we're going to do is to just rebase this model as a platformer character with no kind of clothes or hair or anything like that. So I'll start by taking the lighter skin color and just filling out the character's shape. Again, rounding off the head. And adding back the silhouette and just creating a bald character that we can use for any kind of model. I think this looks a little bit too sharp, so I'm actually going to extend the head to be a little bit more of a rounded off rectangle. Something like that will do, and now we have our character with no hair. Moving on, we'll do the same thing with the clothes. So first, all I want to do is just get rid of all of this orange and shirt color pixels with the darker skin tone color right up until where the pants sit. And now we're actually going to extend the pants up 1 pixel height. So now we have a waist for our shorts, and we can go in and highlight the pieces of the body that need highlighting, which would be the remainder of the arm. So I'm going to highlight all the way up the arm and add 2 pixels here just for his little shoulder. And then we're going to move over to the edge of where the body meets the back arm. And we're going to section this off into a chest and a stomach piece. So right here is going to be the chest portion. And then we're going to skip a line down and highlight the bottom of this character to be the stomach area. This basically just shows the difference between the torso and the back arm, and of course also the difference with the front arm. We're almost done here, so again, grabbing our darker color, we're going to shade the feet. The bottom 2 pixels are actually going to be used for the feet, so we can just get rid of all of the color there on the shoes and the bottom of the pants, and grab our highlight skin tone color once again, just to highlight the front of the feet. And just like that, we now have the base character sorted, ready to go to create any kind of characters you want. So now I'm just going to press Control-Shift-S, and that is going to allow us to save as a new image. And so I'm just going to call this platformer
characters.ase, and I'll click enter. And now this saves it as a separate image, so we're not interfering with our old models. Awesome, so you've now created a base model for the platformer characters. I'm going to come down to the layer tab right at the bottom here, and I'm going to right click on where it says layer 1. Then we're going to go up to properties, and I'm just going to type in base, as we know that this is our base layer for our character. Click on the X, and now we can do the same thing, come back over to the base layer, right click, and create a new layer. I'm going to do the same thing, click on properties, and I will name this costume, as this is going to be our costume layer, so we don't interfere with the actual base of the character when we're creating new models. Click X, and now we can start designing our new character. So to keep things simple, I'm going to create a character that doesn't have a lot going on in the design, and so I've chosen a boxer style of character, which first thing first, I want to make sure that you do have the AAP64 palette loaded in. So again, if you do not, make sure to load palette, click on AAP64 palette, and that's going to load in your palette just to make sure we have the same colors that we're using when creating our model. So to begin, I'm going to redesign the character's pants. So I'm going to come up to the top here and click on these two lighter blue colors, as I feel like most boxers have that kind of light blue shorts. So I'll come back over to my drawing, and I'm just going to repaint over where the shorts are on the base. We can't actually paint bucket these because that was on the base layer, and we should be on the costume layer. So just making sure, again, you are on the costume layer. We'll just repaint these shorts. Now I'm going to use the white color, and we're just going to line across the shins of the character, as our boxer is wearing some high knee socks. And we can grab whatever color we want. I'm going to grab these two brown colors and paint the bottoms of his shoes. Again, using the highlights and shadows where the feet are in the base drawing. So that's looking pretty good. We almost have the finished look of the bottom of our boxer. The last thing I want to add is actually a belt to his design. So using these same two brown colors, what I'll do is on the outside of this hip region, I'm going to add one dark pixel on each end of the hip region. And I'm going to move one in and select the lighter brown color, which I have selected as my off color. So I'm going to right click and select both of those squares. And last but not least, for our belt, I want to have some kind of yellow for that belt buckle. So I'm going to click on this yellow here and place that dot right there to create our belt, or the finished bottom portion of our boxer character. Now, of course, this wouldn't be a boxer if we didn't have some boxing gloves. So again, coming back to the top here, I'm going to grab this red color here, and we're just going to paint on a circle or a square with the limited amount of pixels that we have here right around his hand. Then I'm going to come out, and I'm going to actually outline 2 squares to the right and 2 squares above to round off this glove. Now coming over to this other hand, I'm going to go over the entire base of this back arm. We're going to highlight this whole thing here, and then we're going to come out 1 pixel, 2 pixels to the right, and same thing, 2 pixels down, just to create, again, that rounded off shape. Now, because we have distorted the silhouette, I'm going to click Alt, left click to grab the black color and just fill in this outline. So now we have a proper outline for our 2 boxing gloves. No shading is necessary on this back glove because, again, there is no light actually hitting this back glove. But if we come back up to the top, I'm going to select 1 color lighter on the red, and we can highlight the 6 middle pixels on the top of the round portion of his glove. Again, we want to show where the knuckle and the top of the hand is actually showing, and that is the only part that should be highlighted. Technically, you could be finished with your drawing, but I want to add a little bit of flair to this character. So the first thing we will do is just add a little scarf to our character. I'm going to come right to the boxer's neck now and highlight the 2 middle pixels of his neck in the light red. Then I'll click Alt left to grab the darker red and do the same thing. We're going to line the outer pixels in the dark red. And then we're going to move back 1, 2 pixels to the left, 1 pixel down, 1 pixel to the left, just to create a little bit of a flowing type material for the scarf. Again, just fixing the outline. I'm just going to dot this in black here. And finally, coming back to the light red, I'll grab this color and dot these 2 diagonal pixels right on the shoulder. And there we go. Our boxer now has a little scarf. Personally, I do think that the green eyes just don't really fit too well with the red and the blue of the characters' costumes. So again, I will change the eye color just by selecting these 2 mid-tone purple colors and retracing over where our eyes are on the base design. We're almost there. The final thing to do before we complete this drawing is to add a bandana to the top of the character as some kind of headwear. I'm going to use the same color that I used for the shorts, so I'm going to Alt left click on the lighter color and Alt right click for the darker color so we can start designing our headband. Let's come up right to the top of the head and just create a rectangle all the way across the entire head. Now, because the top of the head should be shaded, we're going to copy the same shading that we used on the base head. So I'll now use my darker color to outline around the head. Almost done here, so we're going to bring the shading down a couple pixels on the corner of the head so we can add the excess material of the bandana at the back. I'll start by coming down to the base of the bottom of the head on the left side, and we're going to add a dark line of blue all the way across, just 1 pixel below the top of the head. Now we'll connect this by getting rid of our black pixels, and just adding some shading will create a diagonal line all the way across. If you'd like, you can add 1 more light pixel down the knot of the back of the bandana. And now we can finish this drawing off by grabbing our black color and outlining around the shape. Personally, I'm not a fan of this corner pixel, so I'm just going to outline that as well. And there we go. We have a finished bandana for our boxer character. I think this is an awesome design that's really easy to execute. Personally, I really like the design that I came up with for the boxer character, so all I'm really doing here is just recoloring some items, and I actually added on some spikes to the boxing gloves just to give a little bit more personality to my new drawing. Play around and see what kind of attributes you can change for your design. But all in all, I'm really happy with how this turned out. I hope you create something that you are proud of as well. And that's going to conclude this lecture. If you need a little bit more practice, the next lecture will be a continuation where we follow up on another design in the platformer perspective. In this lecture, we're going to be taking a look at how you can start designing some more fantasy characters in the platformer perspective with a couple archers to get you started. All right, so to begin, we're going to be working off of our platformer base that we created in the last lecture. So it should be called something like platformerbase.ase or something of that nature. If you get some kind of error console like this, it's totally fine. Just click cancel and you should be good to go. And I'm going to start by creating 3 different layers. So yeah, right click down here at the bottom of the layer 1, and I'm going to create 2 new layers. I'm going to call the bottom layer base, click X, and I'm going to name this next one clothes. And the last one, we will actually name this our weapon layer. And so what this is really going to allow us to do is just to be able to reuse this base model as we have been without getting rid of pixels that we're using underneath each layer. All right, we're ready to go. Make sure that you have the clothes layer selected, as that is the layer that we will be primarily using. And I'm going to select this green, this middle green color over on the left side here. And we're going to use this as our base green. So we'll have a shadow and a highlight color from this. But for now, we'll just overlay all of our shirt in this green. So starting from the shoulder and the chest area, I'm literally just going to highlight a box or a rectangle around this character's body. And because I think that this archer would serve better with a long sleeve, I'm going to, from this square or circle hand here, create an L shape. So now we can see that we have just the 9 squares, which will be the character's hand, and we can get rid of the rest of that color. So it looks pretty good, but we also need to do the back arm as well. So I'm only going to highlight these 2 pixels here, which are the shoulder parts of the back arm. And now we can move on to creating a hood for this character. So I'll start right up at the eyebrows, and I'm just going to create a line all the way across here. Now, because I want the hood to actually hang over the character's head, I'm going to extend our canvas a little bit and create a line going all the way up to the top of our character's head. And I'll just connect this all the way across the left side as well. Just so we don't have our hood protruding too much, I'm actually going to delete this pixel here and draw the line continuing all the way down the back side of the character's head, and just fill in any spaces that are outstanding within the top of the character's head. Now I understand right now this just looks like a weird goofy green hedge haircut, but we will start to reform this into a hood. But we want to be able to connect the hood from the shirt to the top of the head. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of the pixels from across the cheek of the left side of the head and just create a diagonal line all the way across. Now, using my black here, we can see that it should be about 3 pixels across on each height of this diagonal line. But now getting back to reforming the top of the hood. So I'm going to erase this first pixel here to round off this corner, come back to my green here, and I'll actually extend one up from the top of this hood and draw a line all the way across. Now we can get to reforming this. So right where we have this last black pixel from our base model drawing, I'll start to cut off the hood by just extending down a diagonal staircase line. We can end this off by just adding one more pixel down to create the pointed portion of the hood. Now, just like we usually do, I will get the black color back, and I'm just going to outline all the way around this sprite. So before we head into any kind of highlighting, I want to finish off coloring the rest of this drawing. I want you to pause the video, change around some colors of the pants, the boots, and if you want to, you can even give this character some gloves. The choice is completely yours. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this brown color here, and we're going to have the dark and the light color. And just like we've been doing for the past few lectures, I'm just going to highlight around the area that I want, using the dark color where the dark skin tone or pants are, and using the light color where the highlights are popping. So right around the knee area. And now I will grab another 2 set of colors that I will use as boots, but I do think that this character needs some more color to pop this design. Using the same technique that I pretty much always do, I will highlight the top of the gloves and the insides of the eyes. And now our character is ready. So for detailing this character, what I want to do is actually grab this black color and extend 2 diagonal pixels across so that we can create some separation from the back of the hood. Now coming back to this original base green, I'm going to grab one higher for our highlight, and I'll right click on the darker color to grab our shadow color. So for doing the shading, really all I'm doing is just trying to find the bottom of all of the clothing pieces and just lining all the way across the bottom edge. The only exception for this is the back arm, which we want to just have the entire back arm in shadow. Honestly, this looks pretty good for the shading. So now getting into the highlighting, we will highlight all the way around the entire front arm, as it's kind of the opposite effect that we're doing for the back arm. And just to break up the body, we will add a square highlight around the chest, skip a line down, and just create a slightly wider line, almost as if our character has some kind of vest on. And then as far as our hood is concerned, we can highlight pretty much the entire top portion of the hood, as this is the part of our clothing that is hitting by far the most amount of light. I ended up dotting the top right 3 pixels in the corner to show that our hood is starting to curve off into the back side of the head. This looks good to me. So final detailing, all I want to do is grab our white color and just dot the middle pixel of our fist, moving across 2 pixels. We can add another little dot to the left of our hand, again completing the outline. To give our character some spikes on the knuckles, I'll do the same thing on our back arm, But to show proper perspective, I'm only going to put one spike on the right side of the backhand, as the backhand is facing away from the camera, so you wouldn't actually be able to see both spikes on the knuckles. Our archer is complete, so the last thing to get done is to create the bow and arrow for our character. We're going to come up to the weapon layer now, and once you've decided on a proper brown color you want to use for the wood of both the bow and the arrow, we can have that selected in a base and a highlight color. And then we're going to move to the bottom of our hand here. And right where the outline actually stops, we can draw 2 pixels to the left and 1 pixel on the inside of our hand. So I'm actually going to use a purple color to signify the feathers on the back of the arrow. I'll create 3 pixels across the bottom and extend 1 pixel to the right on the bottom and top side of the arrow. I'm going to do a similar effect with the white to create the steel head of the arrow. So we'll start 1 pixel to the left of the top of the shaft, move a pixel up and below, just like we did with the feather, and again, extending 1 to the right on the bottom and top. But the only difference here is this time we want to point off our arrowhead. So I'll actually extend this 1 to the left on the middle shaft to create a pointed arrow. To finish off the arrow, just outline all the way around the outside and actually the inside as well. And finally, grab a lighter color of your arrow feather tip and just highlight around the corners of the feather. Now the bow honestly isn't too tricky. What we can do is grab our wood color that we used for our arrow and start from the middle of our character's hand. I'm going to extend this out 1, 2, 3, 4 pixels to the right, and then we're going to move up on the diagonal and create 1, 2, 3 pixels again to the right. We can extend this down 2 pixels. Now move 2 pixels to the diagonal bottom left and finish this bow off by connecting all the way to the leg of our character. Just so we can see what is actually going on here, I will outline all the way around the bow, but I will leave the red of the glove on the bottom side as we want to show that the character is actually holding this bow in his hands. Fill in the rest of the color all the way around, grabbing the white from the steel head arrow tip. We can come from the top right corner of the inside of the bow, lining 3 pixels diagonally, and shooting this all the way across to the left, showing the bow continuing down the torso of our archer. Highlighting is going to be extremely simple. Grab the color lighter than your base and just highlight all of the bottom pixels across the bow. We could call this finished, but because our colors are very close together from the pants, I'll come back to this shadow color and just dot this bottom pixel as it shows that the light is fading as the bow is reaching behind the character. I also think it would be nice to add a little highlight on the corner of the bow. And just like that, we have a finished archer character. All right, so heading into my design for this second archer, what I wanted to achieve here was to create a more veteran looking archer. So you'll notice that I immediately started by getting rid of the hood on the archer, but by still keeping it in the design, blowing down the back of the character. Once I had that done, I played around with moving around some colors. And last but not least, I actually spiked off the bow by just adding a few extra pixels on the top and bottom of the bow, and then creating some highlights just to create a separation in the design and to show some more detailing. There's still a lot more to learn, but I hope you enjoyed this portion of creating characters and understanding different perspectives, and I hope to see you in the next lecture.